Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Emmy the Cat Lady, and we're back in Point Lookout for another chat about some mutated humans.
Must be going crazy.
Yeah, they do like to chat, these guys. So we're talking about the Swampfolk today, as you can probably guess from the little gang that's standing in front of me. I wanted to get all the varieties, so I just kind of spawned them in with console commands. So the Swampfolk of Point Lookout, they're territorial and quite xenophobic group of mutated humans that live in the swamp area here. So as you can tell, they're still able to talk and things, so you know they're not completely compared to like feral ghouls, say. They are hostile to outsiders. When you encounter these guys in Point Lookout, they're always hostile to you, but they do peacefully trade with the marsh folk, who are the more, I guess, normal humans that live in the area. So people that were kind of born here that haven't mutated like these guys, they kind of trade peacefully with them. But any outsiders, they don't really tolerate. There's another one that one's not spawned in, I don't think. He's just appeared there. Apparently, once you've completed the main story, you can catch them dancing on the beach, but I haven't actually been able to see that. But even kind of pre-war, the locals here were very distrustful of outsiders, and especially anyone that was connected to the US government in any capacity. There was active hostility towards them. They've attacked military personnel, and they also attacked a volunteer from the disaster relief outpost that we talked about before, where she was attacked for going out to offer them help. And the disaster relief outpost was supposed to be there, the point being that they would help manage the outbreak of the new plague that was in this area, as well as other parts of the US at the time. And the Swampfolk ended up being led by a woman named Constance Blackhall, which is Obadiah Blackhall's ancestor. So on Tuesday we did talk about Obadiah Blackhall and his involvement in all the Lovecraftian stuff that's also connected to Dunwich. So Constance Blackhall's brother was Richard Dunwich, so she's related to that family as well. And she used the book, the Krivbekna, which is a bit like the Necronomicon, to control the people. And she had them performing rituals and all sorts of things in order to worship Ugg Toth, which is this entity that they all kind of worship. And the book was stolen at one point from Constance Blackhall, and she died. This happened after the bombshell, but she died shortly after the book was taken away. And it was actually taken away from Point Lookout, and then eventually it kind of made its way back to the area, and the Swampfolk took it. So even in 2277, they're still performing these rituals. They're responsible for all the creepy totems and things that you find with the dolls and mannequin heads and things all over the place, and the skulls of both humans and Brahmin. And they don't really seem to understand exactly what they're sacrificing to, but they are still kind of performing these rituals and things. That tradition's been passed down, even if their kind of understanding of it hasn't. And it seems to be the iconography of this is similar to some beliefs that come from the Caribbean, like voodoo, and the totems use branches, roots, mannequin heads, dolls, teddy bears, and skulls, and they create these kind of macabre displays that you see all over the place. So in terms of the physical changes to these people, so Point Lookout didn't take a direct hit from any of the nukes, but radioactive water that came from the Potomac got into the sea, and it got into the swamps and all the water courses in this place. Combine that with the fact that the new plague was present in the area, and there was also a fairly shallow gene pool, quite a lot of inbreeding, and it has resulted in some significant changes and mutations to these people. Remember that inbreeding, one of the reasons that it's so taboo and it's not a good thing to do, is because when you have a smaller gene pool, so there's less genetic diversity, it makes it easier for mutations to occur, and it also makes it easier for mutations to then keep being passed down. So if you do have an adverse mutation, inbreeding means that adverse mutation can keep getting passed down, and nowhere is that more evident than actually in the dog world. Because with dogs we have such a vast range of breeds, they range in size, appearance, coat types. There's so many different versions of dogs they're all the same species, but such huge differences. And that's come about by selective breeding for specific traits, whether it's physical traits, whether it's behavioural traits. But not all of these things are good, and with some breeds, especially breeds that are less popular, the gene pool gets shallower, and that means that, problematic mutations get inherited and become a problem. There's so many examples I could give, but for example, the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel has a genetic predisposition to mitral valve disease, which is a kind of heart disease, to the point where seeing one of these dogs aged 8 or older and not hearing a heart murmur is considered unusual, because they are so prone to these heart problems and things like that. So the same thing's basically happened here. And they have got some visible changes, so there's skin changes, pustules, growths and things like that, and sores, and there's some deformities in terms of the head shape, the jaw shape, these enlarged arms with like cancerous looking growths and things on them. And the skinnier guys have got these distended abdomens as well, which can suggest that there's something physically going on. And as you can hear, they do speak. They don't seem to have a massively high level of intelligence, but they can speak, and that means that they're not, they're not like wild animals, they're not like feral ghouls. There is still some reason there and some sapience there with these people. But
rats.
yeah, stupid rats. But they don't like you, they don't like outsiders, so they will attack you on sight. So the mutations that are happening here, it's progressing slower than, say, what happens to the ghouls, which tends to happen quite quickly, because the rads here are low level, but they're insidious, and they have infused into the swamps and the watercourses and things, which means that they're getting into the food supply, and this is obviously something that's happened over time. Now, their blood appears to be a brown-green colour. We'll see if we can demonstrate that in a minute. And sometimes they will drop human flesh once they've been killed, so sometimes you'll find human flesh in their inventory. And if you go to the Trapper's Shack, which is one of the locations where these people seem to live, it's up here. You can find a strange meat pie, which, if you know, it's the strange meat is the meat that's sometimes known as long pork and is human meat. So, that does suggest that there is some cannibalism going on with this population as well. There's no female ones, so I've spawned in every version, every kind of swamp person that we have, but there's no female ones in the game. There are voice lines for female swamp folk in the files, but they don't exist in the game. There's no models for them, they're not included. But what they do is they fit into the super mutant niche in Point Lookout. So where in the Capital Wasteland you might find yourself faced with super mutants, these guys fit into that same niche in Point Lookout. And some of them are just as tough as your kind of sort of mid-level super mutants, so your brutes and masters. These guys are actually just about as tough as them, so they fit into that niche quite nicely. So yeah, that's how they kind of fit into everything here. So when we are talking about combat with the swamp folk, they are found in groups. And they're pretty territorial, so they tend to get hostile and start attacking if you get within 100 feet of them and they detect you, or if you shoot first. They do also have that plus 35 damage bonus that the tribals get in Point Lookout, which makes them, more challenging is basically all the kind of tribals get this damage bonus just against you, which kind of adds to the challenge of the combat. They also do have quite high damage resistance, and the big guys tend to protect their head with their enlarged arms. So we'll have a wee look at who's who here. So we will start with this guy. No wait, that's not the one. Not you. You. Yep, so this is the brawler. The first one. So he's fully dressed at least, which is nice. So he's got this kind of yellow shirt and overalls. But you can see, there's some changes. He's got these kind of growths on his face. One eye is closed and things.
Be going crazy.
So they can be melee or they can be ranged and armed with guns, and they are tougher than the scrappers and on par with a super mutant brute. They have 250 hit points, and they're usually armed with axes, baseball bats, combat knives, lever action rifles, or double barrel shotguns. So you can see, they're quite tough. Even, I'm using a Gatling laser, which is a fairly kind of hefty weapon, and they're definitely on the tougher side. And then the bruisers, which is this guy. So again, significant changes to the skin, massively enlarged kind of growths on the arm, neck's thickened as well, one eye is affected, their heads are misshapen and things, so there's obviously quite significant physical changes to them. So the bruisers are much larger and they have an awful lot more hit points. Again, you can see the difference, the amount of damage I'm doing to him versus what I was doing to the brawler with the Gatling laser. So they have 700 hit points, which is a lot. Melee only, and usually they'll use an axe, as you can see. But they can do a lot of damage with unarmed attacks as well. So if you knock the axe out of his hand, then he'll just start punching you. And does 100 points of damage, and they can punch fast, although when it comes to running speed they're not as fast as Deathclaws or Feral Ghoul Reavers, so you can kind of kite them and get out the way if you find yourself in a bit of trouble. And then the next one is the Creeper, which is this guy. So they're kind of distinctive because they've got that kind of dirty blonde yellowish hair. They also tend to be covered in blood, especially in comparison to the one that looks similar to them. So, yeah, very messy. And these guys, despite their skinny appearance, are just about as strong as Super Mutant Masters. They have 400 hit points, and they can be melee or ranged, so they can use axes, shovels, tire irons, double barrel shotguns, or lever action rifles. I think this guy, what have we got? That's why are you being weird? Lever action rifle. I don't know what is going. Bats has been weird today. So yep, and then you've got the scrappers, which is this guy, and these ones are the weakest. So again, you can see you can do a massive amount of damage to him compared to his body, and they are kind of thin with this distended abdomen. Does kind of look like there is a bit of kind of weird spinal curvature to the way they're standing and things like that as well. Got cloudy eyes. So significant physical changes to them compared to humans. So these guys have 150 hit points, and they can be melee or ranged. They'll use axes, baseball bats, BB guns, hunting rifles, and then your lever action and double barrel shotgun as well. And then the trackers, which are the largest, although because of the hill, this guy looks taller, but these guys are the largest, the trackers. And you can see he's got kind of stitches in his neck and chest as well. And again, all these kind of skin changes and thickened tissue, thickened arms, growths, and everything, and the changes
Must
to the
be
shape
going
of the
crazy.
head. So quite a lot of kind of
You
mutations
stupid
there, and they
rats.
can't use guns, but they do have high melee damage and unarmed damage. And for these
Stupid
guys,
noises.
if you cripple the legs, like that's a good strategy when you're dealing with, say, Death Claws and Fallout 3, using the dart gun to cripple the legs, and then they can't catch up to you, so you can
Must be
deal with
going
them. But for
crazy.
these guys, it doesn't slow them down that much, but they're still not as fast as Death Claws, and they have 600 hit points, and I say
Must be
they
going
usually
crazy.
bring an axe. So these guys are obviously
I'm
two
good
very
stuff.
similar enemy types, and then we've got these two. So I say you encounter them all over the place, and point lookout. Is that a dead Mirelark? That's a dead Mirelark. Yeah. So you do encounter them all over the place in Point Lookout, and I say they can be quite tough. So they can
Must
be a
be
bit of a
going
challenge. I mean that kind of goes with all the enemy types really that we find in Point Lookout. They
stupid rat.
they do more damage automatically. They just have a damage bonus compared to similar enemies in the main game. A lot of them are quite tanky as well, and unfortunately, at this point in time, the games were still of the opinion that making combat harder meant basically giving enemies more hit points, more defense, and more damage output instead of making things a wee bit more challenging compared to like Fallout 4, where different enemies had different strategies that made things at least a bit more interesting. But let's use something that the backboard rifle, why not?
Oh, shot my head. Ow. Oh, shit.
Oh, seems to have fairly normal looking blood.
Stupid
Stupid
noises.
rats. Stupid noises.
Looks kind of normal to me. Maybe a wee bit weird looking.
My eyes.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. It said on the wiki that their blood was a weird colour, but I'm not really seeing it. Eyeball.
These stupid rats. Ow, legs hit. Ow.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it maybe does look a wee bit kind of browny. Anyway, yeah, the wiki said their blood's a kind of browny green colour. I'm not convinced. That looks like fairly blood-coloured blood to me. But yeah, say they're not the easiest to deal with when they attack in groups as well, but they definitely fit nicely into that kind of super mutant niche where you've got these tough enemies, but they tend to stay in specific locations. It's the one that we've been seeing in the background, pacing up and down. And apparently, once you've completed the main story, the DLC, you can see them dancing on the beach. But I did kind of hang around for a bit before I started recording just to see if I could catch it. But I have yet to see any sign of them doing that. So either I'm in the wrong place or it hasn't triggered for me for some reason. We're back here at the disaster relief outpost, and there's the broken Ferris wheel in the background. But yeah, so that kind of wraps up, I think, a lot of the stuff in Point Lookout. Obviously, I've been focusing on some of the locations in this DLC. It's a really good DLC. The main story's interesting. The side quests and things are interesting. We've got some different enemy types compared to the base game. We've got a different kind of location, different biome, where we see some of the kind of consequences of what happened pre-war, and some of the consequences of populations that cut themselves off from the rest of society, and then inbreeding becomes a problem and mutations become a problem, and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I really like Point Lookout, and if you've never played through it, I would recommend giving it a go. It's got a decent challenge to it, and it's a very interesting place to explore. Plus we've got, there's a lighthouse, and there. Oh, that's Nadine. That's the. Yeah, she's going to tell us about Tovar, the ferryman, and what he was doing, which is part of the main plot. So I'm not going to say anything, but definitely, if you can and you haven't played through Point Lookout and Fallout 3, give it a go. I don't think you'll regret it. And that is everything from me for today. So a bit of a quick one, but I wanted to kind of do the Swampfolk just so we can kind of wrap up the Point Lookout stuff. On Tuesday, we're gonna talk a bit about some of the sort of smaller companies pre-war. So we're gonna take a look at Hubris Comics, because they have a location in both Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and both locations hide some very interesting little things that are worth checking out. So that's the plan for Tuesday. Then Thursday, we will be back with episode 5 of season 2. Really, really looking forward to seeing how Lucy and the Ghoul handle that Deathclaw that came out of Gamora. Finding out what's happened to New Vegas and everything. Looking forward to seeing that. So if you haven't already seen, I do have videos covering the first 4 episodes with my thoughts and analysis and things that I noticed. So hopefully you'll come back for that, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.